Something unusual is happening right now, and if you really look at it closely, it doesn't follow the normal pattern of how the NFL works. Typically, attention is earned the hard way. It comes after a breakout performance, after a clutch moment, after a player forces the league to notice him. Fans react to production. They wait to see something real before they invest their belief. But this time, the sequence feels flipped. Before any defining NFL moment has even happened, before any real proof has been established at the highest level, the attention is already building, and it's building fast. And it's not just casual attention either. It's the kind of movement that usually takes months, sometimes years to develop. Fans are rushing to get involved early. Jerseys are being bought at a surprising rate. The number 2 is starting to appear everywhere, on social feeds, in discussions, across fan communities. It's spreading in a way that feels organic, but also unusually fast. And that's where the situation becomes impossible to ignore, because this kind of early momentum doesn't just happen randomly. In the NFL, when fans start committing this quickly, it usually means they believe they're seeing something before everyone else does. But here's the part that really makes people stop and think. This level of belief usually comes after a player proves it, not before. That's what makes this moment around Shedeur Sanders feel different. It's not just excitement, it's early investment. Fans aren't waiting for confirmation, they're acting like the outcome is already decided. And when that kind of mindset starts spreading, it changes the entire dynamic around a player. Because now, it's no longer just about development or potential, it becomes about expectations. And those expectations start building long before the player even has a chance to meet them. That's where things begin to shift from interesting to serious. Because in a league like the NFL, where nothing is guaranteed and every opportunity has to be earned, early hype can be both powerful and dangerous at the same time. It creates a spotlight that arrives too soon. It builds pressure that doesn't wait for results. And suddenly, a player isn't just stepping onto the field to compete, he's stepping into an environment where people already expect something from him. Not hope, not curiosity, expectation. And once that expectation is in place, it doesn't slow down, it grows. Every post, every jersey, every conversation adds to it. The energy keeps building, and the gap between belief and reality starts to shrink, whether the player is ready or not. Because moments like this don't stay quiet, they don't stay contained, they expand, they spread, and they turn into something bigger than anyone initially planned. And that's exactly why this situation feels different, because what looks like simple hype on the surface might actually be the beginning of something much more intense. It started with something small, almost too small for most people to take seriously at first. A jersey, just a number stitched onto fabric. But in the NFL, those small signals often reveal much bigger stories underneath. Because when fans begin to rush to buy a player's jersey, especially this early, it's rarely just about style or support, it's about belief. And right now, the demand for the number 2 jersey connected to Shedeur Sanders is rising faster than anyone expected. What makes this moment stand out isn't just the sales themselves, it's the timing. This isn't happening after a breakout rookie performance. It's not following a highlight reel game or a defining moment under pressure. This is happening before all of that. Fans are committing early, almost like they're trying to get ahead of something they feel is coming. And that kind of behavior doesn't just appear randomly. In the NFL, jersey trends are often one of the first real indicators of shifting momentum. They reflect who people are paying attention to, and more importantly, who they believe in before the results arrive. And once that belief starts spreading, it moves quickly. One fan posts their jersey, another follows, then another, and suddenly it turns into a wave. Social feeds begin to fill with the same number. Conversations start circling around the same name. It creates a sense of movement, like something is building in real time. Even people who weren't initially paying attention start to notice, because when the same signal keeps showing up over and over again, it becomes impossible to ignore. The number 2 isn't just a jersey anymore, it becomes a symbol of anticipation. But here's where it gets deeper. Jerseys in the NFL aren't just merchandise, they're a form of emotional investment. When someone buys a jersey, they're not just supporting a player, they're attaching themselves to that player's story. They're choosing to believe in what that player could become. And when that happens this early, before anything has been fully proven, it creates a unique kind of pressure. Because now the expectations aren't forming slowly over time, they're accelerating all at once.
And that's exactly what we're seeing here. The surge isn't just about popularity. It's about momentum starting earlier than expected. It's about fans moving before the rest of the league fully reacts. And in a system like the NFL, where timing matters just as much as talent, early momentum like this can either become a powerful advantage or something much harder to manage. Because once that wave starts building, it doesn't just stay outside the game, it starts pushing its way in. The truth is, none of this actually started in the NFL. Long before Shedeur Sanders ever stepped onto a professional field, the foundation for this moment was already being built piece by piece. And it wasn't just about talent, it was about visibility, presence, and a level of attention that most players don't experience until much later in their careers. From his time at Jackson State to the national spotlight at Colorado, he wasn't just playing football, he was becoming a story people wanted to follow. A big part of that came from the environment around him. Playing under Deion Sanders didn't just bring coaching, it brought cameras, headlines, and constant attention. Every game felt bigger, every performance traveled further, and while other players were developing quietly, Shedeur was doing it in front of millions, building recognition before he ever reached the NFL. That kind of exposure changes things. It creates familiarity. It makes fans feel like they already know you before your professional journey even begins. But it wasn't just the spotlight, it was how he handled it. Calm under pressure, confident in big moments, and always aware of the attention around him. He didn't shy away from it, he leaned into it, and that's what made the hype stick. Because fans weren't just watching him play, they were connecting with the way he carried himself. The personality, the confidence, the presence, it all added layers to his image. By the time he reached the NFL stage, he wasn't arriving as an unknown rookie. He was arriving with a following already built. And that's a rare position to be in. Most players enter the league trying to earn recognition. He entered with recognition already attached to his name. And while that can be a powerful advantage, it also creates a different kind of reality. Because when the hype is built before day one, the expectations don't wait. They don't give you time to adjust or grow quietly. They're already there, fully formed, the moment you step in. That's why what we're seeing now doesn't feel sudden. It feels like the continuation of something that's been building for years. The jersey surge, the conversations, the attention, it's all connected to that earlier foundation. This isn't new hype appearing out of nowhere. It's old momentum finding a bigger stage. But here's the part people don't always think about. Hype that's built early doesn't always survive the next level. Here's where things start to get uncomfortable, because early belief can be powerful, but it can also be misleading. In the NFL, nothing carries over automatically. Not college success, not media attention, not even fan support. Every level resets the standard, and what looked dominant before can suddenly look ordinary against faster, stronger, more experienced competition. That's why early hype, especially the kind forming around Shedeur Sanders, creates a dangerous illusion. It makes it feel like the outcome is already decided, when in reality, the hardest part hasn't even started yet. When fans invest this quickly, they don't just support, they expect. An expectation changes everything. It raises the bar before a single snap is played. It turns every throw into a statement, every mistake into a headline, every quiet moment into a question. Instead of being allowed to grow into the role, a player is immediately measured against the version of success fans have already imagined. And that imagined version is often ahead of reality. It's faster, cleaner, more complete. It leaves no room for the natural process of development that almost every NFL player goes through. That's the illusion. It feels like belief, but it behaves like pressure. Because the truth is, the league doesn't respond to hype, it challenges it. Defensive schemes get more complex, windows get tighter, Decisions have to happen faster, and the margin for error shrinks quickly. Players who looked unstoppable at one level suddenly have to prove they can even maintain consistency at the next. And when expectations are already elevated, that adjustment period doesn't feel like growth. It feels like underperformance, even when it's completely normal. And that's where things can shift fast. The same energy that builds a player up early can turn just as quickly if the results don't match the timeline fans have created in their heads. What started as excitement becomes doubt. What felt like certainty becomes questioning. And in a league that moves as fast as the NFL, narratives don't take long to change. One slow stretch, one tough game, one moment that doesn't match the hype, and suddenly the conversation feels different. But here's what makes this moment so critical. Because early belief doesn't just test talent, it tests mindset. It forces a player to deal with expectations before they've had time to fully establish themselves. It demands composure in moments where most players are still figuring things out. And it creates a situation where every step forward matters, but every step back feels amplified. That's the reality behind the illusion. And once that pressure sets in, it doesn't stay quiet for long.
What's making all of this move even faster is the environment it's happening in. Because this isn't just playing out on the field or inside team facilities, it's unfolding in real time across social media, where momentum doesn't build slowly, it explodes. Every clip, every post, every reaction adds another layer to the story. And right now, the online energy around Shedeur Sanders is starting to feel impossible to contain. It begins with something simple. A highlight clip gets reposted, a fan shares a jersey, a debate starts in the comments. Then it spreads. Algorithms pick it up, more people see it, more opinions get added, and suddenly it's everywhere. What might have once been a small conversation now becomes a constant presence. Feeds are filled with the same number, the same name, the same growing belief that something big is about to happen. And the most powerful part, not everyone joining the conversation is a die-hard fan. Casual viewers, people who weren't even paying attention before, are now being pulled into it. That's how social media changes the game. It doesn't just reflect hype, it multiplies it. It takes early momentum and accelerates it far beyond its natural pace. In the past, a player's rise might take months of consistent performance to truly gain traction. Now, a few viral moments and a strong narrative can create the feeling of stardom almost overnight. And once that perception is out there, it becomes its own force. People don't just watch, they react, they debate, they take sides, and all of that attention feeds right back into the player's image. But there's a flip side to that kind of exposure, because the same system that builds someone up quickly can shift just as fast in the other direction. Every moment is documented, every performance is analyzed, every mistake is replayed and discussed from every angle. There's no hiding from it, no slowing it down. The spotlight is constant and it doesn't turn off. So while the attention creates opportunity, it also creates pressure that never really fades. And that's what makes this phase so intense. Because now, it's not just fans buying jerseys or talking about potential, it's a full-scale conversation happening 24/7. Expectations are no longer forming quietly, they're being amplified, repeated, and reinforced every single day. The narrative is growing whether anything new happens on the field or not. But here's the reality that doesn't change, no matter how loud the online noise gets. None of it guarantees anything when it's time to play. Step outside the noise for a second, because inside the NFL, none of what's happening online actually changes the rules. The environment is completely different. The pace is faster, the margin for error is smaller, and every single player on that field is there for the same reason: to compete, to survive, and to prove they belong. And for Shedeur Sanders, this is where the real test begins. Not in the headlines, not in the jersey sales, not in the conversations, but in the quiet, demanding reality of daily competition.
Because in that environment, nothing is given. Not opportunities, not starting roles, not even second chances. Every rep matters. Every throw is evaluated. Every decision is noticed. Coaches aren't watching hype, they're watching execution. Teammates aren't reacting to social media, they're reacting to consistency. And the difference between staying on the field and falling behind can come down to the smallest details: footwork, timing, reads, discipline, things that don't trend online but decide everything internally. And that's the part fans don't always see. While the outside world is building excitement, inside the facility, it's all about repetition and results. Early mornings, film sessions, constant adjustments, learning systems that are more complex than anything at the college level. It's not about flashes, it's about reliability. Can you deliver the same level of performance over and over again when the pressure is constant and the competition never slows down? That's what defines players at this level. Because the NFL doesn't pause for potential. It doesn't wait for someone to catch up to expectations. There are veterans who have been through it, players who understand the system, competitors who are just as hungry and just as determined, and every one of them is fighting for the same limited opportunities. That's what makes this league different. Talent gets you in the door, but consistency is what keeps you there. So while the outside world continues to build momentum, inside, the standard remains unchanged. Earn everything, prove everything, repeat everything, day after day.
But here's where it starts to get interesting again. Because even though the NFL doesn't run on hype, it still feels it. And this is where the line starts to blur. Because even though the NFL is built on performance, it's not completely immune to momentum. Not the loud, obvious kind, but the subtle kind that builds in the background. The kind that doesn't show up on stat sheets, but still finds its way into conversations, decisions, and opportunities. When a player like Shedeur Sanders starts generating this level of attention, it doesn't go unnoticed inside the building. Coaches may not admit it, organizations won't say it publicly, but they see it, they feel it. Because attention brings focus, and focus brings curiosity. It starts small, a little more discussion in meetings, a little more attention during reps, a little more interest in how he's developing compared to others. Not because of hype alone, but because hype creates a spotlight, and anything under a spotlight gets examined more closely. And when that examination happens, opportunities can quietly begin to shift. Maybe it's an extra look in practice. Maybe it's a slightly longer window to prove something. Maybe it's just being kept in conversations a little longer than expected. And that's how influence works in the NFL. It's rarely direct, but it's always present. Because teams are not just evaluating players, they're also aware of impact. A player who brings attention, energy, and fan engagement naturally becomes more valuable in ways that go beyond the field. That doesn't replace performance, but it can amplify the importance of it. It can make every positive moment feel bigger. It can make every sign of progress more noticeable. And when that happens, the gap between being just another player and being someone to watch starts to close faster. But this is also where things become more intense, because once hype starts influencing reality, even in small ways, the pressure multiplies. Now it's not just about earning a spot, it's about justifying why the attention exists in the first place. Every opportunity carries more weight, every mistake feels more visible, every moment becomes part of a bigger narrative that's already forming around him. And that's the edge he's standing on right now. Because being noticed is one thing, but becoming unavoidable is something completely different. And in the NFL, that transition only happens one way: when the attention matches the performance. And that's exactly where this story is heading next. And now, everything tightens, because this is the point where stories stop building and start getting tested. The moment where all the noise, all the attention, all the early beliefs surrounding Shedeur Sanders runs into something real. Not projections, not expectations, reality. And in the NFL, reality has a way of cutting through everything else. It doesn't care how fast the hype grew. It doesn't care how many jerseys were sold. It only responds to what actually happens when the ball is snapped.
This is the gap, the most dangerous space any rising player can stand in. The gap between what people believe is coming and what actually shows up. Because as long as that gap exists, the story is unstable. It can go in either direction. One strong moment can close it instantly. One missed opportunity can stretch it even wider. And the higher the expectations rise, the more intense that gap feels. It's no longer just about playing well. It's about aligning reality with a version of success that's already been imagined by thousands of people watching closely. And the pressure at this stage is different. It's sharper, more focused, because now every single moment carries weight. A single drive isn't just a drive, it's a statement. A single throw isn't just a throw, it's evidence. People aren't watching casually anymore. They're watching with purpose, looking for confirmation that what they believed early was actually real. And that changes the energy completely. It turns normal situations into defining ones. Because this is where separation happens. There are players who ride momentum for a while, carried by attention until it fades. And then there are players who meet that moment head-on and convert it into something undeniable. The difference isn't talent alone, it's timing. It's what happens when pressure peaks and there's no room left for buildup, no more waiting, no more projecting, just execution. And that's exactly where he stands right now, right at the edge of a moment that can shift everything. Because in this league, it doesn't take a full season to change a narrative. Sometimes it takes one drive, one read, one play that flips the way people see you. A moment where everything slows down just enough and the opportunity is right there. And when that moment arrives, there's no middle ground. Either the hype starts to feel real or it starts to fall apart. And now, everything comes back to one simple question. What happens when belief meets reality? Because at this point, the story around Shedeur Sanders has already taken shape. The attention is there, the momentum is real. The fans have already made their decision. They've invested early, supported loudly, and built an expectation that continues to grow with every passing day. But none of that guarantees how this ends. In fact, in the NFL, it often does the opposite. It raises the stakes higher than most players ever experience this early in their journey. Because belief is powerful, but it's also demanding. Every jersey being worn, every post being shared, every conversation about his future, it all adds weight to what comes next. It turns potential into pressure. It turns excitement into expectation. And once that shift happens, there's no going back to being overlooked or underestimated. The spotlight doesn't fade, it sharpens. It follows every moment, every decision, every performance. And in a league that only respects results, that spotlight eventually forces a clear answer. That's why this moment feels bigger than it looks on the surface, because this isn't just about a young quarterback finding his place. It's about whether early belief can survive the reality of the highest level. It's about whether momentum can turn into consistency, whether attention can turn into production, and most importantly, whether the version of success fans are already imagining can actually exist when the game speeds up and the pressure hits its peak. Because in the end, the NFL doesn't respond to stories, it rewrites them. And right now, the story is still unfinished. The fans have already made their call. Now comes the part that decides everything. Will reality agree